How art fueled economic revolution. What if I told you that the greatest economic revolutions in human history were not powered by kings, not by gold, not even by technology, but by art? Yes, art. Brushstrokes, carvings, pigments, and symbols. Creations once dismissed as luxuries, decorations, or the hobbies of the elite, quietly rewired global markets, shaped empires, built banking systems, and even laid the foundations for the stock market itself. But how did creativity, something intangible, emotional, and often immeasurable, manage to transform the world's financial systems? Why did entire economies rise when a new art style appeared, and collapse when artistic demand shifted? And why, centuries later, does art still drive some of the most powerful economic movements on the planet, from Hollywood to NFTs to the global luxury market? This is the hidden story of how art fueled economic revolution. And the answer begins long before money ever existed. The art-economy connection we never noticed. Before we uncover the revolutions, we must challenge a myth. The myth that art sits outside economics. In truth, art has always been economic infrastructure. The earliest human economies were built around artisans. Pot makers, bead makers, sculptors, hunters carving bone for trade. Anthropologists discovered that in prehistoric societies, the first standardized currencies were not coins. They were beads, carvings, and decorative objects traded over hundreds of miles. Art wasn't a luxury. It was the economy. But something else happened. Whenever a society developed new forms of art, their trade systems changed. Their financial power increased. Their political influence expanded. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from West Africa to China, art wasn't just expression. It was economic technology. And soon, it would become something even more powerful. A weapon for wealth. How art became an economic machine. Our story begins over 5,000 years ago with a simple truth. People desired beauty. And desire drives markets. The earliest cities, Uruk, Memphis, Mohenjo-Daro, grew rich by trading artistic goods. But the real turning point came when early elites realized the potential of art. If you could control artwork, you could control status. And if you controlled status, you controlled wealth flow. Let's look at 3 early examples. 1. Ancient Egypt, art as labor mobilization. Pharaohs commissioned massive artworks, temples, statues, murals, not for decoration, but to mobilize thousands of workers, stimulate trade, and expand craft industries. Art created employment, religious tourism, and political legitimacy. 2. Imperial China, art as state currency. Silk, porcelain, and calligraphy became some of the world's first international luxury brands, creating massive export industries that shaped global trade routes. 3. Medieval West Africa, art as value preservation. Benin bronzes, gold weights, and intricate carvings acted like early storehouses of wealth, circulating in markets from the Sahel to the Mediterranean. In all 3 cases, art wasn't passive. It shaped labor systems, export economies, and taxation. But the true revolution was yet to come. Because one society would push the art economy link to its limit, and in doing so, change the world forever. The art explosion that shook the world. To understand how art fueled an economic revolution, we travel to one place. Renaissance Italy. You've heard the names. Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael. But behind every masterpiece was something even more powerful. Money. And behind the money? Bankers. The Medici, the Fuggers, and the great merchant families of Europe didn't just fund art. They weaponized it. Patronage, the first investment strategy. Art became a financial tool, a way to display wealth, a way to advertise political power, a way to secure banking alliances, a way to signal creditworthiness. In Florence, a family who funded a great artist gained social trust, and with trust came capital. Art systems create economic systems. Here's where things get surprising. The tremendous demand for art sparked the rise of accounting, credit, long-distance finance, and contract law. Take the Medici Bank. They financed churches to gain influence. That influence attracted depositors. More deposits meant more loans. More loans fueled trade. Trade fueled wealth. and wealth funded more art. It was a self-reinforcing financial cycle, one that reshaped Europe. The printing press multiplies the effect. When Gutenberg introduced mass printing, art became scalable for the first time in history. Illustrated books, prints, diagrams, sheet music, all became mass-market products. This didn't just spread culture. It spread capitalism. Printing created literacy. Literacy fueled education. Education expanded economic participation. Art wasn't following the economy. It was leading it. But extraordinary growth always pushes a system to its breaking point. And the art economy was no different. Breaking point, when art disrupts power. If art could create wealth, it could also destroy power. The breaking point arrived in the 1500s, when art collided with religion and politics. The Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther's movement didn't spread through sermons. It spread through images, cheap woodcuts, printed pamphlets, and illustrated satire. Suddenly, art was not in the hands of kings and bishops. It was in the hands of the masses. The economic implications were seismic. 1. The Church's art monopoly collapsed. The Catholic Church had controlled art patronage for centuries. When people rejected religious imagery, the Church's economic machine broke. Entire industries, icon makers, manuscript painters, sculptors, collapsed. 2. New art markets emerged. Cities like Amsterdam pioneered private art markets, the ancestors of today's galleries and auction houses. Artists went from servants of the elite to independent entrepreneurs. A radical transformation. 3. Propaganda becomes economic warfare. European powers used art to manipulate public opinion, sell state bonds, justify wars, and shape national identity. Art had become a weapon, and economies were built around it. But revolution always brings fallout, and the fallout would reshape the world. Fallout, the unpredictable consequences. By the 1700s and 1800s, art had completely transformed labor, markets, and politics. But with progress came instability, the Industrial Revolution and mass production. Suddenly, art was no longer rare. Machines could reproduce images endlessly. This destroyed traditional craft economies. Generations of artisans lost livelihoods. The collapse of the artisan guild system. Guilds, once powerful economic institutions, crumbled. Their monopoly on quality, pricing, and labor vanished. This forced societies to invent new protections. Copyright laws, patents, and modern intellectual property systems. Art becomes commodity. Paintings became investments. Patrons became collectors. Collectors became speculators. We see the birth of the modern art bubble. A cycle that continues today. But the biggest revolution was still to come. A revolution powered by technology, global markets, and a new kind of artist. Attempts to control art's economic power. Through the 20th century, governments tried to control the economic power of art. They failed. Over and over. 1. State propaganda. Regimes from the Soviet Union to Nazi Germany tried to weaponize art. They suppressed innovation. Economies stagnated. Creativity went underground, but returned later with even greater force. 2. Cultural protection laws. Nations attempted to stabilize art markets through quotas, censorship, and cultural funding. Most of these efforts collapsed under globalization. 3. The modern art market bubble. In the 1980s and 2000s, art prices skyrocketed. Governments tried to regulate speculation. But wealth simply moved through offshore art storage, free ports, and private auctions. Art proved impossible to contain. Because art follows desire. And desire follows humanity. But the story isn't over. Because the art-economy connection has returned stronger than ever. Modern parallels. Art is still driving economic revolution. Today we are living through a new art-driven economic revolution. But this time it's digital, global, and shockingly fast. Here are the modern parallels. 1. The global creative economy is worth over $2.3 trillion. From movies to music, animation to gaming, fashion to design. The creative sector now out-earns oil, transportation, and agriculture in many nations. Art is not decoration. It is infrastructure. 2. NFTs and digital art created instant millionaires. During the 2021 NFT boom, $41 billion in transactions occurred, nearly matching the entire traditional art market. A single JPEG sold for $69 million. Digital creators became global economic players. 3. Art drives tourism, national branding, and political influence. Paris, New York, Dubai, Lagos, Seoul. Cities now use art as competitive economic strategy. Museums, film industries, fashion districts, and music economies generate billions. Soft power is now financial power. 4. Social media has turned creativity into currency. Influencers, designers, filmmakers, musicians. Their output shapes consumer trends and trillion-dollar industries. Attention has become the new gold. Creativity has become the new oil. 3 final takeaways. 1. Art is economic technology. Every major economic transformation, from ancient trade to the Renaissance to digital markets, began with changes in art. 2. Creativity shapes markets more than resources. Empires with strong creative economies outlast those with raw materials. Soft power is longer lasting than hard power. 3. The next economic revolution will be cultural. AI-generated art, online creators, virtual worlds, and the global creative class are reshaping finance faster than governments can react. Final warning. When societies undervalue art, their economies decline. When they suppress creativity, they lose global influence. And when they ignore the power of culture, they fall behind. The next great financial shift will not come from banks, or tech companies, or governments, but from creators. The question is, will we recognize the revolution before it overtakes us? If you learned something new today, if this story challenged what you believed about art and economics, then support this channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone curious about how the world really works. Because here on World Financial Mysteries, we uncover the hidden forces shaping global wealth, one story at a time.